Injury here.
Gracias. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Such an honor to be here and to be part of the family of the brain injury family. This is overwhelming for me, and I have to say that when I was asked if I could share a little bit about what that means for me as a mother of a son who has a brain injury, I was, really overwhelmed, and it's very emotional for me. And I wrote like different pages because I wanted it to read and go through it, my key points to share some stage of my life. And at the end of the day, last night, I ripped everything. And I go, I can't handle this. This is like way too much for me. And I go, why did I writing this? This is like I memorized that. So I'm just going to try to see if I can flow and just tell a little bit about my story, my family story. So around 13 years ago, April 1st, I flew to Los Angeles because I needed it to go to a funeral, a friend of mine. And that night, when I arrived to Los Angeles, I got a call from the father of my son. And what he said on the phone was, Marta, our son had a really bad car crash, and the doctors say that most likely he's going to die. That was the call. And I go, what? And I go, this is April 1st, April Fool's Day, right? And I go, no, you're joking, Joel. That's like, what do you mean? And then he goes, Marta, and I know that he was under shock, but that was like what I got. No, he's in the hospital. He's at Emmanuel Hospital, and they don't think that he's going to make it. And I go, I have to hang up. And being myself, I'm a little bit controlling freak, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now, right? I couldn't process that too well, of thinking or crying or anything. I remember calling my partner, and I go, please, Ronnie, can you, Joel just called me, and he said that my son is going to die. Can you please, I think it's something horrible, but can you call Emmanuel with your contacts and tell me what's going on? I'm ready to go and start driving back to Portland. So I got that call. He goes, babe, don't worry. He is in the hospital. He had in a car crash, and indeed he is going through surgery right now. He got hurt. They're going to do a surgery, and I go, where? In his brain. And I go, oh my God, what did that mean? And he goes, no, he will be okay. And I go, I'm driving back. And he goes, no, let me just arrange everything. At the meantime, I have other 3 children. I was thinking, okay, I need my other children in the hospital. I called 3 friends that I needed each friend to be with each of my kids, because that's how my brain works, right? Because I wanted everything like that. And then I had one of my sons at the Air Force at that time, and he was in Qatar. And so we had to flew him back. That's how bad it was that they allowed him to fly back right away from Qatar, because we thought he was going to die. So by saying that, when I arrived to Emmanuel Hospital, I remember seeing my son. He was unconscious. We didn't know he was going to make it. A lot of the challenges that I had for me, one being in a hospital, that probably my son will not make it, but not only that, but there was the language. It was a new language that I needed it to experience and hear what was going on when it comes about health issues, about surgeries, about the brain, about he had an aorta replacement too. So it was way too much for me. And then not only that, but what was happening, the dynamics with the family about, I have my kids here that they feel that their brother was going to die, and then just being there, it was very overwhelming. The other thing that I will say is that while being at Emmanuel Hospital, I will have to say that the doctors were just extremely great, and the nurses and the social workers. I think that I was very lucky, and my family too. But because we're Latinos and we're family oriented, I'm not saying that some of you guys are not, but we are like big, huge families, and we will be together all the time. And I remember a lot of my friends and family, we will stay in one room, and I think we overwhelmed the hospital because my son stayed there, he was hospitalized for a month. And we never left him, not even 30 minutes. We were with him all the way through it. That's just how we do it. And I think the hospital needed some of that break in the room for other patients too. And so that was a challenge that we have. That is the difference is how a lot of our communities of colors could have challenges in the hospitals when incidents like this happen. The other thing that I wanted to share a little bit about it was the finances. What happened to our family when I had to stop working for a few months, and the good thing is that I had a stable job and very supportive, and I had a wonderful family and friends that they did fundraising so I can survive for those months that I needed to take care of my son. I think that most of us that had experienced that, I believe that we don't know what brain injury means. I have no clue what injury meant on me, what was going to happen afterwards. I think at the time at the hospital it was like it's a survival mode, but for me, as a mother, I think the harder time it was afterwards. What it was coming, that I have no clue. When I walk in over here, and there's like I think there's una libreta ahí, like a book where it says about, I think I gave you a copy of that in there. That one, like maybe put it like that. So I remember I was given that, something very similar, when I left the hospital after a month. That was my information that I only had with me to be able to learn what I was going to do. It was in English, a lot of things. I speak English, I read English, but it was very complicated to me. I felt lonely, even that I had my children, and I cannot even imagine how it was for my children too. I don't even remember asking them how it was for them, because I was dealing with my own loneliness, with my fear that what I was going to do now. At that time, my son was 16 years old, and feeling guilty. Maybe I did something wrong, because when he had his car crash, he was under the influence of, he was driving, and he was under the influence of alcohol and marijuana. So what have I done as a mother? So I had all those things that I needed to process on the top of that, of having a child that I'm going to have to look after. And I think I'm just going back and forth, just having my memories. I remember when he was in the hospital, I didn't know if he was going to be able to walk again or to talk. They didn't know. So I have to go through all the process of teaching him again and be with him, or walking, talking, and all that. I wore this today, this bracelet that I have put it away since I brought him to the hospital. And today was the first time that I looked for it, because I wanted to wear it today. This is the first time that I speak about my story in publicly. I'm very private. And so with my personal, I'm a very public person that I do a lot of things, but this is very emotional and private. So this is when he was at the hospital, and that was one of the things that he started to learn, and it just broke my heart because he was 16 and then he was doing things like he was 4-year-old. And I remember when I started, like when the first time when he was unconscious for a week, and the first time that he opened his eyes, I was next to him. It was like seeing him when I saw him the first time, that when he was born. That was the same feeling that I had. And now that I mentioned that, I think that a lot of us who experience or having a person with traumatic with brain injury, it is like I literally lost a son. And I gained a new son. And I have to start to know this new person. And that is still very hard. I'm not going to say that I miss my own son. And it's just like learning this new person that I have to live with him and teach him. And but this story, even with all these hard things that we as a family went through, with the language, with insurance, with attorneys, that I have to deal because he was driving under influence. He was a minor. He had somebody's car, so that's another story itself. Getting a notice in the mail because health insurance that I had a lien on in my house when my son was still at the hospital, and I could not share that with my family, and then lots of fights with my ex-husband. No, it's your fault. No, it's yours. Screaming in the hospital, and they crying that we're going to lose him. So it was just like so many things. But by saying that, I thought that my son will not make it to do good things, right, or to go back to school. So he was 16. He was still in high school. And I told him, I go, Joel, you can go back to and get your GED, because I felt like in my head I had like lower standards that he cannot do things. But he has a little bit of my personality, and I think like, oh, I'm going to teach this woman that I can do better than that. And I mean, literally, I think that. And yeah, he challenges me every day. Yeah. And he goes, no, I don't want GED. I'm going to get my high school diploma. So he, there's a lot of things that happened. He went and got his high school diploma. After that, I told him that he has two choices to live with me. He either needed to stay in school or go to work, do something. I did not want it to have somebody just in the house watching Netflix, right? No. So he decided, he went to PCC. Now he's 29 years old, and he did PCC, and hopefully in next summer he will get his BA. He's at PSU now. I'm amazed. I know it's like, it's amazing. I can wait when he comes and he does his classes, and he does his, how do you call it, his papers. I still believe that he's faking. I mean, literally because I know how he forgets things. And I go, it's like, okay, did you do this? And it's like, he goes, yeah. I go, did you copy that? And then he goes, yes, mother. And I go, so can you tell me what was the story of last week? And I think that that's just with my own trauma of like, it is what will happen and where he's at. So by saying all this, where he's at, he's a gift for me and the family. But at the same time, with my loneliness, with my isolation, even though that I do have great support, I am very loved, I have great friends, but I still feel lonely and isolated because I could not talk with just anybody about my challenges at home with someone with brain injury that could understand me. So I tried to reach, and I thought that there were a conference for people with brain injury, and I reached the person, and it was so hard in my heart and so painful that I asked them if I could go, and they told me that I have to pay. I don't have the money. And this person goes, well, okay, and then you can come, but you can go to a group for just families. And I go, no, I want to go to the workshops where you have the providers, where you have the attorneys, where you have the professionals. So I want to learn, and I know that I can do that. Well, I'm sorry, you can't if you can pay. So I was not given the chance. And that was like very hard for me to understand that in the traumatic and brain community, I was not allowed as a family member because I was not a professional, and yet I didn't have the money to do that. And then I said to myself, I don't need them. So there were many years after that and feel my isolation until one day I had a friend who told me, Marta, there's someone that is looking for a board member, and her name is Fern. And I go, and I thought of you, and maybe you're interested. And that's how I reached Fern. And I go, maybe this is going to be a different experience and different thing. And sure it was. I think, you are one of my angels in my life. And it was amazing to meet this wonderful woman. We talked for hours. And I go, one of the things that I want to do is to participate and to do something that it can make a difference in my community, so they don't have to go through it or have the support that I have not had, and give that opportunity. And that's how I remember saying to her, well, I could participate with one condition, that we need to do a support group in Spanish, and we need to figure out how to do it. And that's how the support group was born. And in trying to do step by step, I know that we have long way. By me saying this, it doesn't mean that there are still that there are great services, because they're not, but there are at least a little bit more. And I think that each of us can do a tiny little bit differences. So I really thank so much BIC, the Brain Injury Connections Northwest, for the services and the work that they do. And I know that my time is up, but I just want to thank my daughter, Andrea, and my grandson that they're here. I think this is the first time that they hear me talking a little bit publicly, and just a little bit early, we have a big talk with Andrea, and she mentioned that it was very hard for her, and I acknowledge that we never really, as a family, have really talked about deep issues about the injury of my son, and it's still a lot of pain. So I really appreciated the support, and I think that it's so important to really talk and just talk. So thank you.